Green Goblin, Octavius, Sandman, Reptile Lizard Guy. Were there 6? Hang on. Okay, maybe it's just 5. Oh my god. Where do I start? Okay, let's start with the villains, the bad guys. We have the Sinister Six. That's basically what we have. Although I had personally forgotten at the time, because I was just so into the film, it didn't register with me that this is the Sinister Six. But we have all of the actors, the original actors, they have returned. It's all them. We're not doing any fakery, not that I know of anyway. As I mentioned earlier with Alfred Molina being digitized a bit, that might have been the case with some of these actors. I didn't notice. If it was the case, it's that good. I didn't notice. However, the original actors are all credited. Let's just put it that way. So we have the Green Goblin from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Willem Dafoe, and it is a sublime performance. And I'm going to come back to that. We have Dr. Octavius, played by Alfred Molina, Sam Raimi, Spider-Man 2. We have is it Reptile or Lizard? Anyway, Risa Fans returns as the Dr. Connors, the lizard reptile guy. We have Electron. What's the character's name? Anyway, Jamie Foxx returns from Amazing Spider-Man 2. Sandman. We have Sandman. I've forgotten the actor's name, but it is him. It's Sandman from Spider-Man 3. Although for some reason he stays in his sand form for most of it. We just see his real persona, his real physique towards the end, only for a short moment at the end. But most of the film he's just in his sand form for some reason. Maybe they couldn't get the actor very long for filming. Anyway, is that all of them? Green Goblin, Octavius, Electron, Connors, Sandman. Green Goblin, Octavius, Sandman, Electron, Electro. Green Goblin, Octavius, Sandman, Reptile Lizard Guy. Were there 6? Hang on. Okay, maybe it's just 5. Where was I? Yeah, so all the actors from the films come back. They give great performances, all of them. I think particularly Willem Dafoe, who is a little bit different in a good way. We get rid of the mask, that stupid mask, because what they've realised is that because Willem Dafoe has got that face, kind of like Jim Carrey, he can twist it and turn it into different shapes and expressions. He doesn't need the mask. I'm not saying he's ugly, he's not, but he doesn't have a goblin face, but he can do that evil, twisted, Grinch-like face so beautifully that I think they realised that just get rid of the mask. We don't need him to wear a mask. He has the hood, that famous, hood and scarf thing that the Green Goblin has, and he looks really good. He looks really good. He looks better than any Goblin that we've seen in these previous films. He looks better than he did in the original Spider-Man. He looks, this isn't saying much, but of course he looks better than the kid in Amazing Spider-Man 2 who played Harry Osborn. But anything would look better than him. But Willem Dafoe, without the mask, with just the hood, he looked amazing. I was sat there thinking, beautiful Green Goblin performance. That's him. That's it. We don't need to give him a stupid plastic, theme park mask. Just have him twist his face up and make these grinning faces, and that's the Goblin. That's all we need. Perfect. So yeah, he's great performance. Jamie Foxx is back. Hayden, what's his name? Hayden Church, that the Sandman, Flint Mark. He's back, and as I say, he's in his Sandman form for most of it. But he's there. He gives an okay performance. Kind of forgettable, I suppose. Not as he doesn't feel as when he's in his when he's in his biped form, he doesn't really do that much. He's kind of forgettable. But when the sand effects are quite good, he does do the face in the sand and all that stuff that we've seen in Spider-Man 3. I think the effects are better in that regard. And Jamie Foxx, they've changed the way that Electro looks. He's not blue anymore. They've gone more for the yellowy kind of look that he had in the cartoon, the animated series. He's not that blue, deep voice anymore, which I never really liked to begin with, to be honest, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So yeah, he does a great performance. Everyone really does a great performance. And now let's talk about... Oh my God! I'm again, like I said with the Ghostbusters Afterlife first time watching. I'm so glad that I went into this without spoilers, because apparently there were leaks to what was going to happen online. I'm so glad that I didn't see those leaks. I'm so glad that I had no idea. I was able to make an educated guess that this was going to happen when I was watching the film, but I didn't know for sure. And then it happened. The villains aren't the only ones that come through from the multiverse. We also, of course, have Andrew Garfield and Toby Maguire reprising their roles as Spider-Man from The Amazing Spider-Man and the original Spider-Man, respectively. And my God, they give beautiful performances. They each just do their own thing. They just are their own Spider-Man. It's as if they weren't. They take to it again so naturally. It's as if they hadn't been away. And it's been such a long time for Toby Maguire, who's in his 40s now, I think. Right? He's like mid 40s now, or something. So he was just Peter Parker again. Obviously looking quite a bit older, fair enough, but he still has that boyish, kind of smile that he had when he was being Spider-Man. And it's there, and Andrew Garfield is obviously, again, he's also older. It's been, how long has it been for him? It's been, when was The Amazing? It was like 2012, 13, 14, I think, was it? So it's been a few years for him, but he still has it, I think. And the three of them, the three Spider-Men, the chemistry that the three of them have, it's just perfect. It's perfect. Absolutely faultless. The way that they talk, they bicker, they talk off one another. They have such a respect and affection for one another. And I just love the fact that they're able to talk about the different things that they can and can't do. Like there's this beautiful conversation the three of them have about Tobey Maguire being able to fire the things from his wrists, because of course the fans said that because he's supposed to create these web shooters that he puts around his wrists and push a button, which the other two Spider-Mans do, but Tobey Maguire, he has those things. He has natural webbing that comes out of his wrists. So, of course, there's this whole conversation about how the hell he does it. And, of course, one of them says, does it come out of anywhere else? Nudge, nudge. So there's a lot of, to be fair, there is a lot of fan service going on here, but it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like a forced fan service like Rise of Skywalker. It feels, as I said earlier, it feels like the three Spider-Men are there for a reason, because they are. And it's a reason that is justified. So yes, it is fan service to a certain extent, but it's relevant fan service. So it's appropriate fan service. So it all works, and the way that these guys are acting, it's just so emotional. And we have a death. Since Homecoming and since Tom Holland turned up as the new Spider-Man, people have been saying, fans have been saying, it follows a kind of different story. There's no mention of Uncle Ben getting shot, and there's no, it does take a different kind of origin story than what we're used to. But this one, No Way Home, it certainly does echo parts of the original story. There's a death in this film. It's Aunt May. Aunt May dies, and it's very similar to the way that Uncle Ben dies. She doesn't get shot, but there's this whole thing about, she says the line, she says, with great power comes great responsibility. And of course, the other two Spider-Men are able to share their stories about how Toby Maguire's Spider-Man lost Uncle Ben, and with great power comes great responsibility. He said that too. And Andrew Garfield's able to share his loss of Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And the three of them have that connection about losing someone, because now Tom Holland's Spider-Man has lost Aunt May. So they're able to bond on that. Andrew Garfield gives a really great emotional performance because he's still getting over the death of Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And of course, he's torturing himself because there's that whole scene of how he tried to catch her, and in catching her, he accidentally killed her. That certainly shows in his appearance in this film, because there's this wonderful scene where MJ falls off. It takes place. The final fight takes place on the Statue of Liberty, which has scaffolding for some reason. Did I miss? Maybe I've missed a TV series or something. But did something happen where the Statue of Liberty gets destroyed or something? Because it's getting rebuilt. Let me know if I've missed something in the comments, because if I've missed something, I want to see it. So anyway, the Statue of Liberty is getting rebuilt with Captain America's shield. For some reason, she's holding Captain America's shield up high, and it looks terrible, actually. I didn't like that. But anyway, the final fight takes place on Statue of Liberty, and MJ falls off, as you would expect her to, because she always does fall off something. And Tom Holland's Spider-Man tries to dive after. It's the usual slow motion thing. She falls, and then you see him run off the edge and try to dive after her. But he gets carried off by Green Goblin. So Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man does it, falls off, and he catches her, and she's fine. But as he's holding her in his arms, she says, "Are you okay?" And he starts to tear up beautifully. As I say, the acting for everyone in this film is brilliant. But he just sort of tears up and says, "Yeah," because you can see how much it's killing him, how he was able to save MJ but not Gwen. So it's all there, the previous stories that we're used to from the original Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man. It's here, we see what these characters are still going through. We also hear more about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, what he's going through now, because obviously he's older now, and a lot of time has elapsed since the last time we saw him. He's still with his MJ. It sounds like maybe they've gone through a few other problems since Spider-Man 3, but it sounds like they're working out. It didn't really make that much. We didn't go into it that much, but apparently she's still around, and they're still kind of together. And it's also, I like the fact that they also kind of refer to how old he is now, his age. He's knocking on a bit. Well, he's not knocking on a bit, but he's older, and how his body starts to ache a bit. There's this wonderful scene where Garfield Spider-Man helps him out by pulling a muscle in his back. He gives him a pull, which is quite funny. I'm going to go into a bit of a nitpick here, and I'm going to mention this anyway. But J. Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons, the character, from Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi films. As we saw at the end of Far From Home, he was the big reveal, the spoiler reveal at the end, that he's back. But there's something that I don't really get. Again, this is probably me just nitpicking. If these characters are from other universes, in other words, other franchises, shouldn't that also include J.K. Simmons and his version of J. Jonah Jameson? Because he was from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, right? So how come if these other Spider-Mans and the other villains come through from the multiverse, how come this version of J. Jonah Jameson is already a part of this universe, the Tom Holland universe? That's something that I've been thinking about. Again, that might not matter to everyone else. I get it. But don't get me wrong, I love J.K. Simmons. I think he's a hilarious he's a perfectly cast J. Jonah Jameson. He's got the voice, he's got the mannerisms, the attitude, beautifully done. But it just kind of seems a bit paradoxical to me to have him as part of Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe, but to not refer to the fact that he's from the Sam Raimi universe originally. So to me, my brain, my nitpicky OCD kind of brain is having a complaint about that. But that's one thought that I had. Not sure if anyone agrees with that, but funny how I think about these things. There are, as I said earlier, it's not 100% flawless, but then again, I don't suppose any film is. But there are some things in this film that do make sense, some things that don't. One thing I did like was when Octavius turns up and they have this sort of mini fight, because it's before Octavius knows that this is a different Peter Parker. So he just thinks he's fighting his version of Peter Parker. But Peter is wearing the iron spider suit, the metal one, the shiny one. And Octavius rips a part of it away. And the nanotech, it's very clever. The nanotech bleeds itself onto the spider arms, onto the octopus arms. So they kind of turn red and yellow. And then Peter is able to connect wirelessly with Octavius's arms. So Peter is able to control the arms, which is how he's able to capture Doc Ock and take him back to a dungeon. So that's a clever way of controlling, moving his hand, and the arm moves up and down. It's quite clever. He's able to. So they think about every detail there. It's quite good. Some parts that don't make too much. There's this one scene that doesn't really make too much sense. I don't know if I missed something. Maybe I did. I miss a lot of things, I know. But there's a scene where Peter goes looking for another villain, because that's part of the plot. Part of the plot is that Peter is given this sort of task by Strange to go and look for all of the villains that have turned up from the multiverse. So Peter goes to a dark forest to look for another villain that's been spotted. And Peter's wearing, I guess I'd call it the Spider Monkey outfit, kind of similar to the one that he wears in Far From Home. A kind of espionage kind of black spider outfit with a pretty cool screen. It has a screen on the front where he's talking to MJ and Ned. You can see them on the screen as he talks. It's quite clever. He's got like a chest plate with a LCD screen on it. But I kind of thought to myself, where did this suit come from? Because I don't recall him putting it together. However, maybe, as I say, he does have more of a Tony Stark kind of presence to him in this film. So maybe, like Tony did, he's made other suits without us seeing. Maybe he just has a small collection of spider suits now that he's been making while he's been away. That makes sense, I suppose. But to me, it just seemed like he was suddenly wearing a new suit. It didn't make a... I was kind of like, where did that suit come from? But again, maybe I'm overthinking it. Now I'm sat here thinking about it. Maybe he has just made a few other suits in the last couple of years that we just haven't seen him make, which makes sense, I suppose, from an Iron Man point of view. He also has a beautiful new suit at the end, because it does kind of take place at Christmas, at least it does at the end, where you see him swinging through the snow with Christmas trees in the background, and he's wearing a beautiful kind of shiny red and blue spider suit. It looks quite nice. We don't see much of it, but it does look nice what we see of it. So the new suits are becoming a thing now, which I quite like. We're seeing a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of different suits to wear in the new Spider-Man games, which is part of the fun of Spider-Man, I guess. What else can I say about it? It all just seemed to fit. It all just seemed to fit really, really well. The story, for the most part, seemed to fit. It all made sense. The characters are great. It's great to see new and old characters, not old as in age, but previous characters, I mean. And they all do a superb job. They don't seem to be there just for the paycheck. They seem to be there because they love and adore the character, which I hope. The characters, the acting is just, without a doubt, some of the best, if not the best acting that we've seen from all of them. Particularly the three, Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Ned. Again, I've forgotten the actor's name. But they all do a brilliant, emotional, genuine, natural acting job here. did I hear? The music is great as always, but did I don't know if it was my imagination, but I could have sworn I heard some of the original soundtracks as well. Like there are scenes where Toby Maguire's Spider-Man talks with Goblin and talks with Flint Marko, and it might have been my imagination, but I could have sworn I heard the original Sam Raimi, Danny Elfman Spider-Man tune come in. Did I hear that? Did I not? Anyone who's seen it, you could let me know maybe. But I kind of like little touches like that. If I'm right, I like little touches like that. Because if you're going to have, the way I see it, if you're going to have the original characters, the characters from other franchises, you might as well have a bit of music in there as well, right? So I don't know if it was the same for Andrew Garfield, not that I noticed, but the Danny Elfman tune from the Sam Raimi films is more recognisable anyway. What else? Yeah, the story. That's the plot. As I say, the plot once the other characters come through from the multiverse, as I said earlier, the opportunity to take them back, to get them back to their universes is pretty much always present through the whole film. And of course, Doctor Strange being the logical one, he just wants to do it and send them back. But it turns out, of course, that Peter has a problem with that. Tom Holland's Peter, that is, because it means sending them back to face their versions of Spider-Man. And of course, we know what's going to happen. They're going to die because we've seen that happen. And Peter, Tom Holland's Peter, has a problem with that because he's a different version of Spider-Man. He's the version that wants to help people or try to help. Well, they all want to try to help, but this time there's more passion behind it. I think he says, he says to Strange, don't send them back. Let's give them a chance. Let's try to help them first. Let's try to help them change their ways, turn over a new leaf, and so on. Cure them, as it were. That's what they say. Cure them. Because of course with the villains in superhero films, it's not just about the powers that they gain, it's also about their frame of mind, revenge plots mostly. So in other words, you can try to get them to change their ways and let things go and so on, which is what happens here. So that's why Peter and Doctor Strange get into a fight, because Strange wants to send them straight back and Peter doesn't. There's a fight in the mirror dimension. Peter is able to fight off Doctor Strange and trap him kind of in the mirror dimension, and then they come up with a way of trying to help cure the villains. Now they succeed with Octavius. He becomes a good guy because they rebuild. As I say, Parker has the Tony Stark quality of building stuff now, so he builds him a new inhibitor to put on the back of his neck, because of course it was destroyed in Spider-Man 2, which is why he became bad. So that happens, he becomes good, but the others become bad again. But their versions of Spider-Man from the same universe, they want to help, again, they want to try and get these villains to be good again. And they succeed and then send them back. And but there's a price to sending them back to the dimensions, which is that the original spell that Strange was going to cast still has to be cast in order to close the multiverse and send the characters back. And that is, everyone forgets that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and everyone forgets who Peter Parker is. So there's the emotional goodbye scene between Peter and MJ and Peter and Ned, and it's, again, as I say, the acting is incredibly beautiful and natural. And there's the I love you scene between MJ and Parker, and then Strange casts the spell to close the multiverse and send the characters back, and then the next thing, Peter's seeing MJ and Ned, and they don't know who he is. No one knows who he is, and Happy Hogan's there, and he doesn't know who he is either. And Peter moves into a new flat all by himself, as we've seen before, and he builds a new suit and goes off to save the day again, becomes the new, as it were, new friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And it's, as I say, it certainly feels like, as I said, it certainly feels like the final part of a trilogy. Most definitely, it most definitely feels like a closure on the three Home films that we've seen: Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. And if and when we see Tom Holland's Spider-Man again, whether it's in a film of his own or part of an Avengers film or another MCU film, it's most definitely going to be different now because of the events of this film. And I loved it. I'm, as I say, I'm so glad I went into this without any spoilers. I didn't know that. I obviously from the trailer I knew that Doc Ock and Green Goblin were going to be in it, and I knew that they were the originals from the Sam Raimi films. I didn't really know that there were going to be other villains either. Although I guess common sense just kind of told me. I was able to make educated guessing about who was going to make an appearance in this. I hadn't seen any leaked footage or anything, or I hadn't heard any rumours about it. I was just able to make educated guesses as I went along, because I kind of thought, well, if Doc Ock and Green Goblin are here, then surely we're going to take some characters from the Amazing Spider-Man as well, and they do. So I was just able to make educated guesses, and I thought to myself, now hang on, this is going to be too many villains, because the villains turn up first, all of them, from the Sam Raimi films and the Garfield films. Is it Webb, the director? So we end up with about 4 or 5 different villains, and I thought to myself, this is going to be too many for this Peter Parker to deal with. And of course, a voice in my head said, well, they're going to bring back the other Spider-Mans to help this Peter fight them off. Which is exactly what happened. And it was amazing. It paid off. It was totally worth it. It was amazing. I loved it. The reactions were great. What can I say? Really great to see them all again. What a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, get your ass into the cinema and go and watch it. You'll love it. I promise you'll love it. If you're a Spider-Man fan, if you're a Spider-Verse fan, if you're a multiverse fan, if you're a fan of the Sam Raimis and the... is it Mark Webb? I want to say Mark Webb. If you're a fan of Toby Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Mans, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. Because the chemistry of all three of them, it's all there. It's all there. It's beautifully done. And they did this so well. Writing, dialogue, acting, characters, story... The story, I think, the plot was the only, not terribly weak, but it was the only bit of all of it that was a little bit weak. But it worked, just felt a little bit sort of there for the sake of it kind of thing. Just as an excuse to keep everyone where they were. But it was fine. It was fine. But other than that, though, 90% of this film just had me glued to the screen. I loved it. As always, guys, if you like what you see on the channel, give me a like, share and subscribe, and give me your comments and thoughts and suggestions in the comment box, and check out the links I've left for you in the descriptions and the comments, and I'll see you in the next video, whatever that's going to be. Until then, this film was fucking amazing. I loved it. Go and see it if you haven't seen it. Spider-Man No Way Home. A superb closure to the Home trilogy. Go and check it out, guys. I'm gonna get out of here, and I'll see you. Bye.